It's up to me to start. So I would like to share some reflections on our past journey setting up this secure Swiss finance network and what does it mean to us. And I would like to start my reflections with a short views, what I think about our today's internet. Of course, it's a glorious thing, but what is the future of our internet going to be? Is this the future of our internet? I don't hope so. What a lousy state our internet is in, actually. We have heard this morning, and I really said I was so shocked and so angry when I read this. It's awful. So, for me, the vastness, lawlessness, and lack of responsibility of our internet, this is also a part of this, that such crimes can happen. So, and therefore, I'm proud that a couple of years ago, colleagues from different financial institutions in Switzerland, we were starting to look into SCION. How could we make things better and more secure? So with this slide, I just give you, this is a visualization which came up over time, and it shows to us how what we have done, how do we see it at the moment? We see in blue at the bottom, we see this infrastructure layer. So there we have the providers. We have the cert providers. We have Anapaya as a technology provider. This is the technological basis. And on top of that, we were seeing that there is a chance to set up community networks, which have a purpose I will come later on. And on top, we have the participants who are able to join the different isolation domains. They are able to join the different community networks, and this is how it looks to us. On the left side, you see all the participants, all the players who were with whom together we had the chance to set this up. So, what I would like to stress is that, of course, there is this technological realm of SCION. We heard a lot this morning what is already there, what are future developments we are heading for. But there's also a sociological realm, and this is something I would like to comment a little bit on. So, we have common grounds and targets, working relationships, actions, a culture of common ideas and agreements. And looking at this culture of common ideas, it is my question, is this just a mere result? And this is my idea I would like to share with you over the next few minutes, that this culture we have developed so far a little bit over the past 5 years, it's not just a nice to have or an outcome, but from my perspective, it is an essential basis for the functioning of SCION-based infrastructures and, in specific, for our community network we have set up with the Secure Swiss Finance Network. Let's make a short detour. Of course, we know the ability to work from remote became very essential for all of us. And And what we have observed is that it worked quite well, but not because of an atmosphere of control, coercion, or micromanagement, but because of a culture we were able to set up in our enterprises. And this here is a direct quote from Professor David Burkus. And he has written an excellent book, Leading from Anywhere, and our department leadership has arranged for a session just a couple of days ago where Professor Burkus showed us what is essential to make this happen, that this remote work was possible or is possible. And what he stressed is that team members inside of an enterprise need a shared understanding, so they have to know each other. Who is my fellow? What are his specialties? What is the shared identity we are fighting for? What is our aim? We're looking for. We are offering the best product. We are looking for profit gain, and there also has to be a psychological safety. So leaders have to act trustfully and with respect. So a positive culture is a must in today's complex technology-driven enterprises. And my question is, can we carry over these principles, this idea, this culture aspect to our SCION infrastructures and special purpose isolation domains like the SSFN? Well, there's a big difference. We are not team members in one enterprise. No, we are autonomous players with their own targets, and so this is a big difference. But I think that even these different institutions which were able to set up this SSFN over the last years, we have something in common. What are we fighting for? And this is something, this is not a profit gain, this is a scarce resource we are looking at, a scarce resource. And scarce resources, we know, for example, it is water for irrigation, or it is grass to feed the cattle. Several farmers are using together in regions where grass is a scarce resource. And what is a scarce resource? From my opinion, what we are looking at with our SSFN. And this is what I would like to point at. We are having a protected data communication between autonomous and responsible players. I think this is the scarce resource we are together are striving at. Why is it scarce? Because protected data communication between autonomous and responsible players, it cannot be offered by just one telco, one telecommunication provider. It has to be there has to be a choice, a flexibility to choose from. And we know this protected data communication between autonomous players at the moment is highly at stake. We know open just means unprotected at the moment. So we're coming to a term I would like to bring here into play, the common pool resource. The realm of common pool resources, or short commons, in German we are talking about Gemeingüter oder die Allmende. Here we are touching the work from a totally different perspective. It's a work from Professor Elinor Ostrom and her work on governing the commons, which she wrote in 1990. So this, I just would like to draw your attention on her work. In 2009, she was awarded the Nobel Prize in Economic Sciences. She was the first woman to get this prize. And her work, you see on the left side, the title of one of her, I think, very good papers, Design Principles and Threats to Sustainable Organizations that Manage the Commons. So I have to switch over a little bit more here. What she was working on are these design principles of functioning organizations who are working on these commons. And this table shows it, and I just want to draw your attention a little bit to the left column. Here you see the 8 design principles she was seeing in her field research all over the world. Please just have a look at them. And if I bring this together, then we see that all these design principles on how to build rules where the autonomous players are sticking to, how to have conflict resolution mechanism, how to have a system of monitoring and also of sanctioning if players are not sticking to these rules. These lead to a shared understanding, shared identity, trust and respect. And I have it very short here, the time is running out, I see, but what is really important to see is that there's no blueprint, there's no copy-paste from one organization to the other one. And even the role of the government, we have to look carefully at it. There's no need for a general funding. This is, in fact, it is counterproductive. There are no prescriptions and smart planning which has to come from the government. But the government has an important role. It can deliver a formal acknowledgement and legal protection. I think this is also important when we're talking about SCION-based infrastructures. We have to see this. I'm coming near to my end, but let me just do not hustle too much about it. So here again, this visualization, I see it as a common pool, resources, management, and mindset, which leads to a shared understanding, shared identity, trust, and respect. And now looking back to the 5 years we were working on this project, I see that we have this management and mindset. We have developed it on the level of the isolation domain, where we are talking about the governance of our community network, who's allowed to join it, what are our aims, how can we try to be it really a community network which is open to all the financial members. And there's also another level. I think there is a level of management and mindset which has to be developed by the providers, by the telcos, by the infrastructure providers. And these are two different levels. And I think, and I'm very curious how our providers in Switzerland, who we were working on to set up this SCION-based infrastructure, how they are going to cooperate in the future. And I think this could be very important. And when we look back on this past 5 years, then we see we already gained a high degree of this management and mindset, and not only on the level of the engineers, but also on the chief executive level, I would say. And when this started to grow, then things started rolling with our SSFN. So let's wrap it up very short here. My idea, what I wanted to present to you is that we are having this very good technology, which is good and even getting better, of course. But there is also this view that what we are dealing with is a scarce resource of protected data communication, and this also has to be cultivated and managed in a thoughtful and sustainable way. So these are my thoughts, and I would like to hand over now to my colleague Fritz.
Thank you very much indeed, William, for these words, and thank you for all the contributions that you have done to this network. And without the ideas you brought in, we would not be there where we are right now. So let me talk about the building of the Secure Swiss Finance Network now and give a bit of insight into how this came along and where we come from and where we want to go to. So maybe just a few words on the intro side. So I will briefly explain who we are at SIX and what we do and why we chose to go down the path with SCION and why SSFN came to be based on the grounds that William elaborated so nicely just before. So SIX is the backbone financial infrastructure provider for Switzerland. We provide this through 4 business units, the exchanges, most notably this Swiss Stock Exchange, then also the security services. Somebody has to deal with the traded goods and has to make sure that they end up in the right pools and in the right places. We also provide financial information business. So when you hear of the stock markets growing or falling or rising, then it's through this business unit. And we also provide the banking services. Here a bit in more detail on what these 4 business units actually do. SSFN came along in the banking services area, where we talked with Swiss National Bank on how to secure and protect the transactions that are going between the banks and that are clear between the banks. And this is where it all started. Now, the business idea, of course, is one thing. The technology is a different thing. Technology by itself probably does not really foster or change any of the behavior. By itself, it also has to serve a purpose. And this is what is really important regarding that endeavor. Now, of course, we had a network. Of course, it's secure and it's there. It's aged like a good old wine. And the network that we have in place is maybe not really as old as this one. The old geeks here probably know what this is. This was the first internet router deployed in the 60s or so by BBN. It's not as old as this one. It's a reliable and secure network. However, we wanted to build something fresh, something new due to upcoming and new requirements. So this is how it looked like, actually, the traditional Interbank network versus the SSFN, or the vision, what was then not SSFN yet, but what was to become SSFN. So today's network is based on a hub and spoke architecture. You see the hub in the center, which is SIX, and you see the spokes, which are the participants. They are exchanging information. They are doing transactions over these networks. The aim of this network is really to talk to a central provider on the business level, which is then, in this case, SIX. It's secure, but it's limited, and it does not adhere, it cannot fulfill new requirements that have come up just recently, like, for instance, an any-to-any communication to enable some kind of maybe consensus algorithms or any kind of real-time capabilities that you would expect from such a network in these days. On the right-hand side, we then have what is known as the community-based any-to-any architecture. We called it SSFN then. We wanted to reach or to fulfill those requirements that I mentioned before, whilst not really giving away everything to the open public. So internet was out of the question. But an internet-like technology could be used, which should be there to protect against cyber attacks, where it would allow this flexible any-to-any communication so that we could not just offer services through SIX, but also that banks amongst themselves could really offer services to each other. And of course, it should be secure and resilient. These were the aims that we had when we started out this project. Now, of course, there's many more requirements, as we see here in the cloud depicted, the availability, failover capabilities, resilience to any kind of attacks or something. There's also keywords and buzzwords that are out there, which you probably know if you're in the network engineering space. SD-WAN, for instance, the traditional MPLS, of course, moving everything to internet, which is really a trend we're seeing by more and more, especially also these fintech enterprises that are out there to bring new services and new good features to the industry. What is here in the middle is a really important aspect, and it's also touching upon this, what we heard from the Red Cross this morning, and also what William elaborated so nicely. It's the governance. Who should actually take care of the network, and who should guide the usage, proper usage of these common grounds, of these purpose-built networks. And governance is an interesting part. Let's look at it. It should be trusted. There's a quote by Ronald Reagan stating that it's good to trust, but you need to also verify. So it's not just, I trust you by the person you are, but I also do verify intentionally or unintentionally of actions that you actually do are coherent with your behavior that you expose. This quote actually holds true, especially in the financial industry, because trust there is really paramount. And trust is built with consistency. It's built through trustable parties. It's also built over a lengthy time frame, but it can be destroyed very quickly. It must be cherished, it must be nurtured, and it must also be proven over time. And if it's shaken, it must then be rebuilt. The distribution here is an important aspect as well. Nobody in the Swiss financial industry could actually play king, right? There's no dictatorship in a governed network like SSFN. And so therefore, even if a company is trustworthy, trust can be increased more if more personas, if more companies are drawn in to form some sort of root of trust. And this is exactly what we wanted to do. And if that trust or if that network, these governance principles were enforceable, then even better. So many traditional network technologies, or some that come up just or have come up just recently, also support this. SD-WAN, of course, but there you have the problem that either you have to choose a carrier which offers you these services, or you have to choose a vendor because interoperability is not really guaranteed. MPLS and P2P, two other technologies that are out there and which we are heavily using already, similar obstacles, and therefore we have trouble there. New internet technologies that are out there could provide some of these nice properties, and I'm really astonished how brilliant these ideas really are. But either they are not implemented, or then there is no transition path from today to tomorrow. And neither of these were really good and fit for purpose for SSFN. If we look a bit more into how we actually built this governance aspect in SSFN, we distributed that governance body over 3 individual parties. One is the Swiss National Bank, the second one is SIX, and the third one is from the telco providers, which is Switch. And these 3 parties really form what we know as the voting members. So we separated that governance body from the core network providers, something that is typically together in a SCION world. But we separated those and made them individual so that actually the governance body could take care of the business aspects, whereas the core providers could take care of their services that they provide in their field. The governance defines then the SSFN rules and regulations. It's not a book, but it's certain pages, about the behavior and what we expect from parties participating or offering services. Service providers must qualify. They go through a defined process on how to come online. And the basic characteristics is here that we have a regulated interaction between users and service providers with rules defined by governance, influenceable by users and service providers, and decentralized like the internet. And this is really a first. This is something we have not seen in the past in any other networks. So what did the journey look so far? We had a project start in December 2019, officially kicked it off with service providers. This was a really nice kicking off. The prospect was to get together every once in a while and to build this network. Well, it did prove that it was a bit more difficult, just first and foremost because of COVID. We signed the first TRC in April 2020 under unforeseen circumstances where everybody was in lockdown, but we demonstrated that this could be done. The pilot network was then enlarged subsequently, and in November 2021, we went live with it and banks can come online. What is the outlook on SSFN? So we want to move and migrate and offer all the services offered by SIX from these private networks over to SSFN, maybe with an exception, which is the stock exchange network, which is a Formula One network, if you wish, which could prove to be a bit more difficult. And then we also want to help foster other vertical ISDs, maybe in healthcare or government, energy sector, and so on and so forth. And of course, we want to boost SCION technology globally and see where that journey takes us. If you looked closely, you would have seen that there is no target, no final end of this journey. We have just done 3 steps, and we will continue with this. And I'm looking forward to see where that journey takes us to. And I'm impressed, how the community grew over time. This makes me really proud of having achieved here something for the greater good. Thank you very much for your attention.
Could we squeeze in one quick question, Fritz, while you're on your way?
Sure.
What are the advantages and perhaps disadvantages of switching to SSFN now?
If I got the question right, what are the advantages, right? So first of all, I think it's moving away from a rather inflexible old infrastructure to something new, to something which is more geared towards future applications, but also that the application resilience is actually much, much, much better. So we have demonstrated in tests for SSFN or in SSFN that applications which tend to break and then be down for about 4 minutes or so due to reconciliation, of course, reestablishing sessions and so on and so forth, will switch over from one path to another one within milliseconds. So it's really a guarantee, not a guarantee, but it's much, much, much improved over what we have seen today from today's structure of the network. And just renovating that is not so really, a good way forward, because the other properties that I explained, like the any-to-any architecture, for instance, or offering services by other banks, other parties, that would not be fulfilled.
Thank you. Thank you for squeezing that in. Fritz, I just want to quickly say thank you to Mr. William Boye for sharing your reflections and insights, really.